A one and a two and a chick-a-boom a chick.
All right, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Remodelers on the Rise. Now, Mike Medford with Medford Design Build. Hi.
Hello.
And I'm going to thank you for being here. I'm going to ask you a question. How many episodes of Remodelers on the Rise have you actually listened to, sir?
67 and a half.
Well, wow. You didn't miss a beat there. I thought, let's start with an awkward question where he's going to go, actually, Kyle, I've never listened to your podcast before. I don't even know what it is. But you didn't even miss a beat. You're like 67 and a half. I have no response to that. I think there's only 52 episodes, but
I listened to 10 of them twice and one of them 3 times.
There we go. Good. Well, I really appreciate you taking time today. Where this came from, and we just got a chance to chat for 10, 15 minutes, but we haven't chatted before. But where this came from is we have, you're part of my private Facebook group called Remodelers Community. So if you're a remodeler listening to this, if you go to remodelerscommunity.com, it's just a great group of almost 800 remodelers, just good conversation going. And a few weeks ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, one of the members, Paul, had written, for those of you who run a handyman service, what is the best way you've found to promote your services? What are the most profitable handyman jobs? We are considering launching a handyman service next month to get us through July and August, which we're expecting to be slow. We're recording this on April 15th. We're kind of in the middle of the whole coronavirus and COVID side of things. What Paul was seeing is, okay, we have work kind of going, but we're going to hit a little bit of a bucket because we don't have new work coming in. So that's the context in which you're hearing this. And then Mike, you had chimed in. You said, we started a handyman service 2 years ago. We have found its success was opening the door to small remodeling projects that our design build model was shunning. Our best marketing is focusing on past client list. Happy to chat about it if you want more information. And then several people are like, love to chat about it, want to hear about it. It is a topic right now in the middle of this as leads have slowed, as we have this uncertainty of when things are going to kind of pick back up depending on where you're at in the country. This is a topic that I think it's wise for remodelers to look at and to think about. And as I saw the interest, I thought, you know what, maybe Mike would be willing to just be a guest on the podcast so that we can hear your story of it, hear your thoughts on it. I'll chime in with some of my thoughts, and I think it'll be helpful for remodelers out there. That's our game plan. Sound good?
Yes, it does.
All right. So 2 questions that we're both going to answer to give some context on this. Number 1, and I'll have you answer first. If I'm a remodeler, does it always make sense for me to start a handyman division? Yes or no?
No, it never makes sense for everybody to do the same thing. You got to explore it, make sure it makes sense for you.
That's right. And I would echo that it's not for everybody. And I just wanted to add that little bit of context up front. But number 2, this question, in times like these, should all remodelers be looking into this a bit? Should they be thinking about what other services that they could offer their market, especially their previous clients? Is that a yes or no for you?
That's a yes, because there's an inevitable slowdown and you want to keep the machine going. So
yeah, absolutely. So, and I echo that too. I think right now we do need to be spending time thinking about these topics, but as I was thinking about the kind of the way that I wanted to approach this conversation, I wanted to put those 2 questions out there kind of early because I have had dozens and dozens of these conversations over the years with my remodeling clients of, does it make sense for me to start a handyman division? Should we take on this type of work? What if it's a previous client versus somebody else? There's a lot of that conversation that I've had over the years. And it doesn't make sense for some people. It does make sense for others, but I do think it's wise for all of you right now to be kind of considering what this looks like. What we have here in Mike is somebody who has years and years of experience, has built a successful design build company, and back in 2016 said, you know what, we've got to look at perhaps adding a handyman division. So I want you to maybe kind of share your story of how you kind of came around to that, and tell us how the handyman division kind of came to be.
Okay. Well, my son and I started this construction business in 2007, and we were just a scrappy, what I call a scrappy remodeler. We would do anything and do it well and do it fast and get in and get out. And in that era, those small jobs, was all that there really were to get. And then then we
Hey,
started.
by the way, way to start a remodeling business like this new. You were always in construction, but way to start it right in 2007.
Yeah, I told my son a lot of times. I said, this is really going to be good for us because if we jumped in when things were really good, we may not be as efficient. But
There you go.
we learned to be very, very efficient, and we held on to those values, and it's paid off. So
Excellent. Excellent.
it was when you always make the best of it, right?
Yep.
And then I've got my little chart here. So then we started growing, and like in 2014. We were doing about $1.5 million, and that's when the jobs were mainly because the jobs were getting bigger, and so that's when we decided to become a design build firm.
Got it.
And by 2016, I was looking at our client because some of our old clients would call us and want us to do a job for them, and our business model didn't fit anymore, and we were too expensive, and I just noticed that we were turning our backs on what was used to be our base client. And we did
what would be an example of one of those projects that maybe you were turning down
like
at that
if somebody wants a deck built on their backyard, the first thing we want to do is design it, and,
Got it.
And it's just we make it cumbersome, putting the design process in first.
Got it.
Or if somebody wants, to replace their door and trim package in their house,
Okay. So you're seeing yourself starting to turn that down.
Right, exactly, and we did the demographic research, and noticed that our base client was 5% of the population, the top 5 income earners, and the top 65% up are the homeowners, and so we were turning our back from the 65 to the 95%. So the seven times the market, and so we started looking at it, and we found a couple of other companies in the United States that were doing that and doing it well, and studied them. And I reached out to the owners of those companies and talked to them as well. And we just decided that's what we were going to do. And
so pause right there. There's several things I heard right there. One is, we started doing some research on our clients. We really understood, wait a minute, we're catering towards the top 5% of the market, which means we're kind of letting the rest go. And then I hear, we started researching. We looked for other people around the area, around the country who were doing what we were wanting to do. We reached out to them. We networked with them. People are really, really willing to share their expertise in our industry, right?
It's unbelievable. It really is. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think sometimes we're shy, business owners are shy to reach out, but whether it's through, Remodelers Community Group, whether I know you're part of Remodelers Advantage, whether it's through your local HBAs or NARI groups, I'm always looking for takeaways. If you're looking for a takeaway, that could be a really good takeaway for everybody listening to this. Make sure you're reaching out to people that are doing things that you want to do, because that knowledge, those conversations you had, Mike, with those people probably trimmed so many headaches out, trimmed maybe months or years off of, learning it the hard way. So I wanted to just emphasize that for people.
Yeah, that's a good point. And so then we made the decision to do it, and we started it. We branded it in 2017, and during 2017, 2018, 2019, our sales almost quadrupled in the design build. So we didn't really have the time and energy to put to it, but we stayed focused on it. And one of the things that I learned is that, if you're going to do something like this, and it's going to be an integral part of your organization, you got to find the leader. Somebody's got to be the quarterback and solely responsible for making the dream happen, and executing the plan. And so we took, it's actually my son, he was the production manager for the design build, and we trained another guy under him to take his day-to-day duties off of that, so that he could fully focus on the handyman division. And it just, once we got him in the seat and started pouring advertising money into it, we quadrupled in revenue the first 12 months that he was.
So what were you seeing on the handyman side, if you even just round numbers, kind of that first year you did it, second year you did it, third year you did it? What type of growth did you see in the handyman work?
Yeah, I've got the numbers right here. So in 17 is when we launched it. We did 55,000. In 18, we did 266,000. In 19, we did 255,000. But we were dragging, and then in most of that in 19 was in the second half, and then coming into the first quarter of this year, we were pacing to do about 900,000.
Wow, some real big growth there.
Right.
You know what you brought up with, you know, needing somebody to really be in charge of it and quarterbacking it. You know, one of the challenges with the handyman division is there's a lot of there's just a lot of hustle you still have to do. All of a sudden, there's still invoicing. There's still this. There's still that needs to happen. There's still estimating. And instead of doing that for maybe 10, 20, 30, 40 projects on the design build side, you're doing that for up to dozens and dozens, hundreds.
Right.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Okay, so I've seen that as well. The examples that I've seen where it's gone well for a remodeler to add a handyman division, they have had somebody in charge of it. Or somebody that can do the work and estimate the work, build the work. That's also a way that can work well.
Right, and that's the premium model, because you want you want, and what we call them is project developers. And it's back to just think about when you were, you know, that scrappy remodeler, and you're just building a business model around that guy. And so he talks to the client, figures out what he can do for him. Yeah. He writes the estimate up, you know, does the proposal, has them, sells it. Then he manages the project and gets the final check collected. Now, you know, having an office with administrative staff, we have a person that we've assigned as his administrative staff and helps him with that paperwork. Because like last year, he had right at 203 leads, and this year we're pacing at 384. So it's a lot. It's wow, a lot.
That's a lot.
It goes fast, but again, there's smaller projects, and you just got to get your mindset out of what it takes to do a design build. It's just think scrappy. And then once you get that guy doing that, and then you can, that's something that's trainable, teachable, and you just replicate that.
Yeah. So one thing I've heard people talk about handyman divisions, a line they use, and I'd be curious your feedback on it, is, you know, the problem with handyman work is that you need to charge well for it in order to be profitable. And it is hard to get people to say yes when you're charging really well for some smaller projects. It feels to them like it's expensive. What's your take on that?
You're absolutely right. And it shows in the closing ratios, because like in our design build, our closing ratios run anywhere from 55 to 65%. Mm-hmm. And in the design build, we struggle to keep them in the upper 20s percent.
So on the handyman side, on the handyman side, it's 50.
Backwards.
Yeah. Yes, that's all right. I just want to make sure I got that right.
On the design build side, we close 55 to 65%.
Got
on
it.
The handyman side, we're closing in the high 20%.
Got it.
And that's because of just what you said, is that it's just too expensive for a lot of people. But
mm-hmm.
We're offering a professional level service, and you're looking for clients who don't want the headache of dealing with Chuck in a truck. And
so how do you compare the way that you price your design build side to the way that you price your handyman side? Any insight for remodelers? Because that's something that comes up, is like, okay, am I charging an hourly rate for this type of work? Even if I'm not showing that to the client, how do you approach, and what's your answer to how you approach the design build side versus the handyman side on the pricing?
Okay, so on the handyman side, the other thing to kind of need to clear up is that you're not really chasing true handyman work. You don't want to send Bob over to Mrs. Sally's house for 2 hours to change your light bulbs and worry about, do I charge her $75 or $150
mm-hmm.
an hour? What you're looking for is small construction projects. And what we say is construction projects that don't require designs. And sometimes that's a kitchen. You get somebody with just a small pull and replace kitchen. She knows exactly the finishes she wants, and just show us, go buy the stuff and we'll install it for you. And those are, thousands of dollars of projects instead of $100 of projects. So, so most all of them, I would say 95% are on bids. And so it's just like the design build. Yep. It's like, we'll do that project for, $4,332, and this is how you're going to pay us.
Yep. And now what happens when one of your previous clients said, you know what, I've got a light fixture, I got the ceiling fan I need to replace. What do you say to that?
Okay. So then you do need to figure out what your hourly rate is. And the hourly rate is going to differ from company to company tremendously, depending on, where you are and how you operate. But you've got to identify what your true cost to get that guy out there. I mean, you need to burden that labor rate with, the taxes you pay, any matching IRA, insurance. You're paying insurance for that guy to be out there, and so you make sure that so you figure out what your true burden is, and you double it, and that's your rate. And ours is about $75. We're in Texas, and our labor rate's very low, our tax rate's low, and our guys use their own trucks. We don't supply trucks and things like that. So, but I'm sure that there's some people that would be $125. So how much we charge doesn't matter, but figure out what your real, no kidding labor rate is and double it. That's your rate.
The approach you're taking. I want to pause and emphasize two things. One is, we're using this phrase handyman, and you rightly kind of adjusted a little bit of going, we could just as easily call this small projects division. And right. I think that wrapping our head around that, because so many remodelers out there, I'm guessing a lot of you, especially when times are not what they are right now, we would kind of look at it and go, okay, like most of my clients would say, okay, if a project is under $10,000 and it's not from a previous client, it's not something that we're interested in. Or everybody's got that number, right? If it's $5,000 or less, it's just not something we're interested in. And I think as you look at these smaller projects or consider some of these smaller projects, I think there's still going to be a little bit of a line of demarcation. That number might be a little bit lower, but there's still going to be projects where you say, if it's just a couple hours of labor or just a very simple this or that, it's not something that we take on. I think that thinking through that of, looking at your team, thinking about the type of work you'd want to take on, you can still be selective. Just because you're a handyman doesn't mean you have to take on anything and everything that comes your way. And I thought that was good for you to emphasize that. The other thing that is totally outside this conversation, but it's tied in with this, that I just want to emphasize, because I listened to Mark and Victoria interview you. I've listened to all one of your podcasts, by the way, unless there's more of them out there.
The one you know about.
Yes, the one I know about. But I listened to it three. Yeah, I listened to three of them because I listened to it 3 times. But I listened to that, and I heard a man and a remodeler who knows his numbers. And I listened to that interview, and boy, we weren't doing this before, and then we really started understanding our numbers. Where's our margin, this and that. And I'm watching your eyes. Most people listen to the podcast, but we'll upload this on YouTube as well. And when I said, what was your growth? I kind of was anticipating you already kind of being able to pull it up. Your numbers. And this is important, yes, for this topic, but I just want to emphasize it. One thing that this is maybe a golden opportunity as people are slowing down a little bit. You do not have an excuse to not do your job costing. You do not have an excuse to dig into your estimating. You do not have an excuse to not know what your labor burden is. It's not that all of these things are out there. Go read Markup and Profit. Go read, Profit First. There's all kinds of resources, but so often it just comes down to just sitting down with these numbers and digging in. And I just want to emphasize that, because everything that you're discussing here, all of your decision-making and starting this division of your business is all rooted in knowing your numbers. And I just want to emphasize that for the people. Anything you'd add to that?
Well, I want to circle back to the question you asked me about, if Mrs. Brown calls and says, hey, I need to have 3 light bulbs replaced and my front gutter cleaned out.
Sure.
we absolutely send our guys out there, and we just tell them, he's $75 an hour plus any materials, including driving time. And, and they go out and do it just as a service to them, and give the guys something to do. It's good filling time. But I'm just telling you, those jobs are few and far between.
Got it.
But we have some, and they're typically older widow ladies that it's like they're just trying to get a list together, get our guy to come out, because somebody's in the house they like, doing it. So, and once in a while, if it's a really good client and the guy goes out there and he's there for an hour, we just say, we appreciate your past business. If there's something else we can do for you, let us know.
That's great.
Just use it for that.
And I was preaching there, Mike, I was preaching there about the know your numbers thing. What would you tack on to my talk about knowing your numbers, and any quick advice on that? And then I'm going to ask you some more questions. Well,
I mean, you said it passionately. If you don't know them, learn it, or hire somebody like Kyle to help you learn it, because it's night and day. If guessing and knowing are just night and day. Knowing gives you so much control, and it's powerful.
Would you say out of the 67.5 podcast of mine you've listened to, that was my most impassioned 2 minutes when I was talking about that?
I felt that. I felt that.
Okay. All right, good. All right. So another question would be, and then I've got a few more of, if I'm looking at this and going, you know what, I'm not really looking to add a new division and make this super formal. I'm really looking to get us through the current crisis. I'm really looking to fill some of this lull in work that I'm anticipating in the coming months. How would you approach that, or what advice would you give to remodelers for that part?
So if you, the quickest thing you can do is go to your database of clients, print out some labels, and send them a letter. And just saying, we've got gaps in our schedule. Do you have any small projects that don't need design work? We're trying to keep our guys busy and help our clients along the way. And the owner should sign it, and if you can't produce those labels in the next 15 minutes, then you need to learn how to put a database together, because that is your most valuable marketing tool. Let me tell you a story. Now,
Mike, you're hitting on one of my most favorite topics of all time, of your most valuable marketing asset being your previous client list. And it's ridiculous that I did a project with you, Mr. Remodeler, listening to this 3 years ago, and I haven't heard squat from you since then. By the way, if you go to remodelersautopilot.com, you can try for $1 and you will consistently be staying in touch with your previous clients. Anyways, yes, I would like to hear your story, Mike.
That's a good investment. I crashed and burned in the late '80s. We had the financial crisis then, and made some bad decisions. Had the IRS as a business partner for a few years, but anyway, in 1992, Arlington, Texas, where I live, we had $1 billion hailstorm, and that was like when $1 billion was a lot of money.
Wow.
And at the time was one of the highest cost natural disasters, but it was right on top of me. And that next day, I did the letter. I just printed it out, and we did roofing back then, and we just did about anything, and we stayed busy for 4 years off of that.
Wow.
Because they had hailstones as big as softballs that penetrated houses, and got the exterior, interior, and got people to hold off, and then a lot of people put back porches on, but just because I had that label, I was immediately put to work, and had a head start on all the storm chasers.
Yeah. So I mean, the question there that you answered was, if I'm not looking to start a new division, but I want to temporarily fill this void, let's say you're getting this PPP loan, and all of a sudden you get all your team back, or you're keeping them busy, but the work isn't there. This is a great opportunity to maybe take on certain projects like that. And where you directly went is exactly where you should go, which is your previous clients. These are people that you've already built know, like, and trust with. They are your relationship. These are the people that have kept you in business all these years. And there's projects out there that they're some of them just love you and they want to keep you guys busy and they want to help out and they've got this little project. So to mail them out something, to have your client list organized. We're talking about takeaways. I'm always talking about takeaways. If you don't have your client list organized in that you could mail them something and that you could email them something, that is such a critical thing to work on while you might have a little bit more time on your hands. Or even if you're busy right now, hire somebody to help out organizing. That's tedious if you don't have it organized, but getting that set, it is your most valuable marketing asset and a great place to start to kind of fill the void.
Right. And in long term, you can expand that database too to include their income, their jobs, the zip code, and then do filter searches and maybe see some patterns there that you can market towards.
That's great. Okay. Now, if I'm somebody that's thinking a little bit more of like, you know what, I think I want to kind of start up a little bit of this handyman division, maybe a little bit more formal. What are some of the other kind of why do you do this? What are some of the other reasons that you would give to have people really consider this?
Well, the first thing you got to do is make sure you're the right person to be pulling this off, because it's hard enough for a remodeler to become a good businessman. And then it's hard for a good business guy to start running two divisions. I mean, it's another way of thinking. So, making sure that you're trained or got the support to really pull it off is important. But as I said earlier, the number one thing is that the demographic is so much larger. And what I found out too is the Google AdWords are a lot less expensive than the ones that you chase design build work from. And it was surprisingly easy to crank the Google AdWords up a little bit and get the leads to flow in and out. And then let's see, and then the margins, your margins should be at least 50% higher than what they are on design build, and maybe even 100%, as long if you're running really efficiently.
Okay. What's your gross margin goal on the design build side for your company?
Minimum 30. We wish we could get to 40, but we've been struggling with that the last couple of years.
Okay.
Just because on the design build, the thing, the selection items dilute the margin so bad, and it's just it's hard to mark selection items up 40%. But
gotcha.
When it does settles, we definitely want to be above 30, and we were hitting in the mid 30s, and then on the handyman, a minimum of 50% and 50 to 75%.
Okay, good. Any other things you'd add to the kind of why do it, or what's working for you guys on it?
Well, long term, it's what I call seed clients. We've got this one guy on my reference list, and if somebody gets a hold of him, he starts, I hired them back in 2008, and they were fixing my back porch post, and 3 years later they were still here, and they had my whole house, and then that guy's heavily involved in the church in the local area, and we've gotten a lot of good clients out of it. All those little jobs are little seeds, and if you take your mailing list and you mail to them 4 times a year, and stay in front of them, that's the water and fertilizer that makes them grow. And it's really putting the roots down on your business. And then
go ahead.
And then when
please.
you get to a time like this, you're ready for it. It's the best you can be.
Yeah. I love that analogy of you're seeding clients by staying in touch with them and reaching out to them. You're watering and nurturing them. It just felt very Texas to me. I don't have a lot of Texas connections, but that just sounded like something a guy from Texas would tell me.
Well, I'm a gardener, so I think about those things.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah. Well, if you sit and study a tree, you can learn a lot about life.
I tell you what. Woo! I love that. Don't give me. I'd start really preaching really preaching, if not just yelling at people, but preaching, talking about trees, man. Trees get me. Actually, my wife and I were just talking about this. So I'll go there. Like, I think when I'm a Christian man, and when I look at trees and when I look at the sky and I think about we're spinning around on a ball right now, and it just overwhelms me of God's glory. My wife, it doesn't do anything for her. She's like, yeah, that's interesting, but you put harmony and music in front of her, a choir singing in harmony, and then she could just go off the charts. So you hit on a little bit of a hot button when you started talking about, man, you study a tree, you can learn a lot about life. I couldn't help myself there. There we go.
Amen, brother.
Hey, amen, brother. Cool. Well, thank you very much. Anything else? Those were all the questions I had. Anything else that you'd kind of add to kind of wrap up this conversation?
Do your research. Don't dive in headlong, but check the 30,000 foot view out. Think about where you want it to be in 5 years and 10 years, and create a path and process to get there, and ask for help along the way. Because, man, it's like I said, like you said earlier, the remodeling community are the most giving people I've ever met in my life, and it's just it doesn't make sense to forge alone and figure it out as you go. Yeah,
that's good. There you go. There you go with foraging again. See, you're full of these can't help yourself. Foraging along. I get it. I understand. There's two things that Bailey, if you're listening to this, we'll add it into the description. Mike wrote up a nice 2-page kind of recap of a lot of what we just covered, plus a little bit more. I'll link to that in the show notes. And then there's another thing that you were kind enough to share, where your handyman division is called Mike's Guys, Handyman and Construction. And you just sent over just several different examples of marketing that you're sending out. We got Spring Hope Maintenance. We've got a guy for that. That DIY home project was easier than I thought it would be, says no one ever. Just a bunch of different examples. And we'll put that in the show notes as well. I think that'll get people thinking. Is that all right if I put that in there too?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Cool. And if anybody wants to contact me and have a phone call or a conference call, or if you're ever in Arlington and want to stop by and have a cup of coffee, just give me a holler.
Awesome. Very good. Mike, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing your experience, your knowledge. Glad we were able to connect, and thanks so much for taking the time.
You're welcome, Kyle. Have a good day.
Thank you for listening to that episode. I wanted to tell you about a course that I am launching. It starts on April 29th, 2020. It's called Remodel Your Sales Process. Now might be a golden opportunity for some of you to be really focused in on the fundamentals of selling well. I think coming out of this, we're going to be needing to do more to close the opportunities that we have than ever before. I think we may see fewer leads for the next many months, which means we really have to be locking our sales process in well. I think we're going to run into more objections from homeowners related to, hey, can I have Uncle Bob do the electrical on this? Can you break down your price a little bit more? And we need to brush up on our sales training to handle those and to lead the process well. And we're going to do an 8-week course. You can find more about it at remodelyoursalesprocess.com. remodelyoursalesprocess.com. Wanted to add this to the end of today's episode to encourage you to check that out. Thank you so much for listening. Hope you are doing well in these crazy, uncertain times. Keep focusing on what you can control. Keep working on your business. It's a golden opportunity to work on your business. If sales training is something you need to work on, remodelyoursalesprocess.com. Take care.